On this day, 1998, Wesley Snipes authors a quintessential movie star performance as Blade opens in theaters.
Half human.
Blade's mother was attacked by a vampire while she was pregnant.
Half immortal.
You got the best of both worlds. All our strengths, none of our weaknesses.
He is their greatest fear and our only hope.
It's open season on vampires.
Wesley Snipes, Stephen Dorff.
You're one of them, aren't you?
No, I'm something else. Blade.
And we're back, like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I want to thank you all for spending some of your Monday morning with me here in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz, get right to the guts of the episode. Well, almost literally today. And when younger people, and in this instance by younger, I mean under 35, when they think of comic book movies, some people will think of Henry Cavill as Superman and the new film that James Gunn is putting together with David Sorensweet, an actor I'm not familiar with. Some people will think Batman. Will they think Robert Pattinson or Ben Affleck or George Clooney or Michael Keaton or Val Kilmer or Christian Bale or Adam West on the old TV series? There's always a beginning. And the nominal beginning of the comic book movie thing, I don't want to say craze. I feel that word gets overused for this kind of context. But the sort of origin of when comic book movies were viable, you have to go back to 1978 and Warner Brothers' decision to go with an unknown actor in the pivotal role, the title role of Kal-El, Clark Kent, Superman. And they went with an unknown by the name of Christopher Reeve, who turned out to be, I believe, the single greatest casting choice in the history of Hollywood. Even more so than Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry. These are the competitors. Sean Connery as James Bond, Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent, Kal-El, Superman. There's no way that you can do better with casting. And throughout the MCU, to the credit of Marvel Comics and also with DC Comics, I feel like they got the casting right more often than they didn't, because I remember back in the day, 36 years ago, when Michael Keaton was announced for Tim Burton's Batman, people were up in arms. People are always up in arms. When Daniel Craig was announced as Bond, websites sprout up out of nowhere. Daniel Craig is not Bond.com. Fuck Daniel Craig, he's not Bond.com. Not really exaggerating. Sometimes they just get it right. And 26 years ago today saw the release of what we now can say, in part thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine, the beginnings of what is now the Marvel comic universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe to be more precise, with the release of Stephen Norrington's badass, hard R-rated take on a comic book that, no offense, most people were not that familiar with. And I had never heard of the comic book character of Blade. I read Marvel as a kid. I read some DC, but mostly Marvel. But my Marvel Comics experience as a child was, I think I had 2 issues of the Fantastic Four. I read some Spider-Man. I read some of the Incredible Hulk. Didn't read the Avengers. I maybe had 1 copy of 1 Iron Man issue, and it was the series where he had the metal face with the slits for eyes. And how fucking stupid was that, right? But I didn't know the character of Blade. Now, Wesley Snipes is someone I was already a fan of. Wesley first came on the radar for Generation Xers, for many Gen Xers. I sometimes make blanket statements. I should always specify what I mean. For a majority of Generation Xers who can remember when Wesley Snipes was an A-list bankable movie star in the 90s. The first film that I saw him in was Major League, a terrific baseball comedy. It would be somewhat of a dated film, but the elements were there, and Wesley is great. There are some people that they come on the scene like a thunderbolt, and they announce that they have star power without actually coming out and saying, put the camera on me. So Wesley did Major League, and then he worked with Spike Lee in Mo Better Blues, and he worked with Spike Lee again in Jungle Fever, which is, I love Spike Lee as a personality, New Yorker, diehard Yankees fan, Mets fan. He's a character on social media, New York University grad and New York University visiting professor these days. You know that I'm big on academics, and we can rip Spike for a lot of things, but furthering the academic endeavors of other kids and young adults who are interested in film, you're not going to get me to criticize. From what I can gather, he's a really good professor. And a million years ago, Martin Scorsese taught an advanced seminar at New York University 1 year before I got there, while he was editing The Age of Innocence. If ever there would have been a time, I wish to have been a fly on the wall. The Martin Scorsese Advanced Seminar, films of the 70s. I think that's what it was. I can't even imagine. But the idea is that Wesley Snipes was a budding star, and then movies such as Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, where his performance is not one of the problems, and neither is co-star Annabella Sciorra. Performances are terrific. I just feel like Spike kind of got bogged down in some stuff that really wasn't that, well, to me, it wasn't really that critically important. There were certain avenues I didn't believe he needed to go down. New Jack City, though, was a film that, if you look back on it, you wonder how Wesley was not nominated for Best Actor. In fact, Danny Peary, an author, a film buff, I like his work. He was written on cult movies. And he did a book called Alternate Oscars, and he was gobsmacked that Wesley Snipes did not get more acclaim for New Jack City. So Wesley, after that, then he did White Men Can't Jump, which is a great sports comedy. They're not that easy to do well. They're actually almost impossible to do well, but that was a home run. So Wesley was a big star. Even with movies that kind of disappointed, like Sugar Hill and Boiling Point. Passenger 57 is a fucking riot. Always Bet on Black, absolute gold. Money Train wasn't that good. It made money. But by the time of Blade, there was a sense that Wesley's days on the A-list were coming to an end. What are you going to do? But I remember seeing the trailer for Blade, and then I had to learn that, oh, this is a comic book character. This is not a one-off that was created for the movie. This is a comic book character. So 20 years after Richard Donner's Superman, now we have an MCU, nobody was calling it that, but we have a Marvel Comics film where they're going to try to take some kind of lore and comic book gravitas, taking it seriously. That this is not going to be jokey like the Dolph Lundgren The Punisher or the ridiculous Captain America that they did, I think, in the early 90s. Remember, they hadn't done Spider-Man yet. The Tobey Maguire movies were still a couple of years away. So when Blade landed, I saw it opening day, and the reviews were pretty good. There were some critics that were fans of Wesley Snipes and didn't like what he did in the role. That there wasn't enough Wesley, there wasn't enough personality. But looking back on it, he's playing a character, a comic book character. And it was presumably his actor decision to lower his voice and to not overly emote as he had done and showed pretty significant range in films like White Men Can't Jump and New Jack City. I mean, you want to talk about an actor who can do almost anything. It's Wesley Snipes. And there are a lot of people who probably were seeing him for the first time, very young people, when they watched Deadpool and Wolverine, and now they're going to go back and say, okay, this character is cool. I'm going to go back and watch Blade. Well, the first Blade movie is the best of the Wesley trilogy. I like Blade 2. I don't love it. And Blade 3, unfortunately, is entertaining because Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds. And he brings it, and he's great. And I like Jessica Biel in that, Patton Oswalt, he's good. Wesley had issues with the filmmaker. That was the thing. And people always thought, well, he and Ryan Reynolds haven't been on speaking terms. They hate each other's guts. Well, that obviously wasn't true. The issue was that Wesley and David Goyer, they just didn't see eye to eye, and it happens. It's big boy, big girl, big studio filmmaking, and sometimes you just don't get along with the people you're working with. Hopefully you fight like hell anyway to make as good a movie as you can, because it does happen. There is strife. It's not always sunny and Village of the Nice Happy People the way it seems to have been. As much as Deadpool Wolverine had to have been a killer of a shoot, with all of the cameos, there's so many things have to go right to make a movie with that kind of cast. Ask Arnold Schwarzenegger, Last Action Hero, the number of cameos that he managed to cram into that. It's not so easy to get it done. They did it. That appears to have been a production which was lively, and as much as its work, as Harrison Ford even said when he was asked what was it like doing, the most recent Captain America film, he said, sometimes it's fun, but honestly, a lot of times you're just fucking working like a normal person. You're just making a lot more money. No offense. He didn't say that part. But that's the idea. A lot of it is a grind. And the original Blade also could not have been an easy production. They shot certain things on location in Manhattan, and there were effects shots which had to be very difficult to pull off. And Wesley with the martial arts, and Stephen Dorff, the knife, the sword fighting, there's a lot of really great stunt work and production mechanical effects work in this film. So the reviews were pretty good, and I was confident that I was going to enjoy the film, and the movie exceeded expectations. And we talk about CGI, the kind of realities and limitations of CGI. The movie Blade opens with an action sequence where there is some CGI, but it's very subtle. It's done in a way that does not take us out of the fiction. And I will go down on this hill. The opening rave sequence of Blade is a top 10 action scene ever. Ever. That is how well shot, orchestrated, edited, stunt worked, computerized, everything is perfect. And the song, which is a song called Confusion, which was originally by New Order, which was completely blown up and done into something totally has nothing to do with the original song. When I met Peter Hook 7 years ago in Huntington at the book review, and he was one of the front men for New Order. And I really wanted to ask him about that, but when I had the opportunity, when I met him, I choked. I wanted to ask him, what do you think of the version of your song that is now associated with the Wesley Snipes movie and the Marvel Comics film Blade? I just didn't have the guts. I just didn't have the guts. Because he might have yelled out, oh, fucking piece of shit. Although Hookie, as he's known, seemed like a great guy. Just seemed like a college professor, not a $40 million net worth musician who is still rocking out all across the world. But that's beside the point. Blade opens with this unbelievable slam bang action horror type of a sequence, which establishes the character of Blade, the Daywalker. He is literally half human, half vampire. He ages, I don't want to say he ages like a normal person. I feel like the aging process is slower, but he ages. He goes to the bathroom, normal stuff. He's like Spock, half human, half Vulcan. Well, Blade is half vampire, half human. And he had a human mother who was bitten by a vampire while she was pregnant, hence the Daywalker. And he is super strong, superhuman strength, and he has martial arts and knife and sword fighting skills that are also not of this earth. So I honestly, as much as I loved the movie when I saw it, at the time, I felt Wesley I thought that he was almost a weak link in the film, that his acting was so stiff and wooden. I just didn't understand why such a vibrant, charismatic performer would choose to play the role this way, but now it makes sense. And it made sense in the sequels, and Blade Trinity Part 3, he's such a sourpuss, but the character of Blade is pretty fucking miserable. He's had a miserable life, and all he does is kill vampires. He didn't even have a choice. You know, Tom Cruise, an interview with the vampire, I'll give you the choice I never had. He never had a choice. He was scrounging for scraps as a kid when he was found by Whistler. That's the Chris Christopherson character. It's true that, I shouldn't say that. See, I always frame it in this way. I don't think that the rest of the movie Blade is as extraordinary as the opening rave. But it is always involving, and Stephen Dorff, who people were waiting for him to they've been waiting for him to have a bigger career since the early 90s. And it's unfortunate because I really like his performance in the movie Blade. His career never really took off, even though he never takes a movie off. He was terrific in the film Blood and Wine with Jack Nicholson and Michael Caine, which I think came out the year before Blade. So he's working with big people and had the respect of a lot of people in Hollywood. Then he played a villain in Cold Creek Manor, which was not a good movie, with Sharon Stone and Dennis Quaid. So it's one of those things where sometimes you just happen to cast a film and someone like me who maybe doesn't like the movie is stuck on one element of the film. And Dorff is supposed to be playing this kind of villainous character in Cold Creek Manor. The problem is that the protagonist is played by Dennis Quaid. And I got to be honest with you, Stephen Dorff threatening Dennis Quaid looks like at any moment he can take Stephen Dorff, stuff him into a garbage can, and throw him away and leave him there. So like, there are just certain things that stick with me, and that movie sucked. And I keep remembering, why is Dennis Quaid listening to this kid threaten him? Why is he not dialing him up? What the fuck is happening here? But the performances in Blade are, in my opinion, better than you would expect. And it's ironic and it's still a little bit kind of funny to contemplate that Wesley gives the tightest performance, that he gives the least emotive performance. It's almost, please forgive me for even bringing this up, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the humans emote less and have less real human emotions, seemingly, than the fucking computer. But the other characters, Donal Logue is great as the kind of right-hand man of Deacon Frost. That's the Stephen Dorff character. Nabusha Wright, the actress who plays a doctor who's a hematologist, kind of comes in handy to be a hematologist when you're dealing with somebody who needs a serum so that they don't vamp out and just start killing the humans that they seem to be sworn to protect. But she was in a movie, I believe, with Michael Rappaport. I think that she is the actress in a movie with Michael Rappaport with not a great title, but apparently a very good movie called Zebrahead. But she brings an air of realism to her character. And this is something I appreciate in comic book movies, where you have characters who appear to be from the real world, who are grounded. Ma Kent, for example. And I would say as much in the way that Diane Lane plays Ma Kent in the Henry Cavill Superman movies, as what we saw in the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, where Richard Donner was obsessed with the notion of verisimilitude, despite the fact that we have a fantastical story with godlike beings and magical shit going on that can't happen in the real world that we know of. But we want to make it still feel as real as possible. And her character is always a grounding force, even as crazy shit is going on around her. She is reading her lines like, this is a real doctor who went to medical school, and she's really good at her job. She just happened to get attacked by a vampire, and now she might become one also. The Blade ended up grossing about 3 times its production cost. And I don't know the specifics of why no one decided to do another Marvel movie right after Blade, because you had three Blade movies came out in 1998, I believe 2002, and then 2005. 2004 or 2005 was Blade Trinity. Orion was very young at the time. I don't know why it took until 2008. Well, I know why it took so long for Iron Man, but not everybody would have had the grand designs of a Marvel Cinematic Universe the way, like a Kevin Feige and Avi Arad once upon a time. Sorry if I mispronounced Avi's name. But nobody really knows. What we do know with Iron Man in particular is that Tom Cruise had wanted to do an Iron Man movie for a very long time. And Cruise, again, to his credit, he could not find an Iron Man origin script to his liking that he felt would justify the enormous production that it was going to take. This is another reason why Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, why he was able to stay at the top of the Hollywood mountain, despite the kind of weird scandals and Scientology and some of the other stuff that he was involved with, because he is incredibly patient for a guy who, in real life, they say he's so fucking restless. He's like Stallone, the man can't sit still. But Tom Cruise did not want to make just any old Iron Man movie. He wanted to make a great Iron Man movie. And honestly, if he had gotten, let's reboot The Matrix and say that sometime, let's say just before Tom Cruise did Last Samurai, either just before or just after The Last Samurai, which I think is now a 20-year-old movie, right? He gets the exact Iron Man screenplay that they ended up making. Jon Favreau and Downey Jr. and everyone else who was involved. I don't know that Tom Cruise would have gone for that script. I don't think that that's his speed. It's difficult for me to picture him. I can picture him as Iron Man, but not that script. So it just wasn't meant to be. That could be part of the reason why they didn't do anything else. Because I guess when you think in terms of the Avengers, it has to begin with Tony Stark. And without a Tony Stark movie, there's not going to be any Avengers. And I remember way back at the beginning when Iron Man came out, the first time I heard the phrase and the explanation, I don't know if it was Avi Arad or whether it was, I don't think Feige was there at the time, but somebody connected to Iron Man was already talking about a Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I gotta be honest, I thought they were full of shit. I said, this is not going to happen. This is bullshit. Well, I'm glad I was wrong. Even though I am a movie person, I am a purist. And when the Martin Scorsese's and Francis Coppola's, and to a very lesser extent, Steven Spielberg, but when big hitters will stick to Coppola and Scorsese, and even Tarantino to some extent, when they say, we don't consider this to be cinema the same as a Dirty Harry, a Pulp Fiction, a Shawshank, an Oppenheimer, even though Chris Nolan made the Batman trilogy, the Bale trilogy. When they say it's not the cinema, it's not the same, I don't think they're necessarily wrong, but I enjoy it selfishly. And I happen to think most of the MCU movies that feature Robert Downey Jr. are very high quality films because some of the most talented people in the movie business are working on these films. They're not trash. You want to say like Scorsese, it's like theme park. It's an amusement park ride. It's not the same. I'm not taking issue. And I subscribe to the idea. Jon Favreau said this. Francis Coppola and Martin Scorsese can say whatever the hell they want. They have earned the right to speak their piece on the current state of cinema. Nobody should check them back. Nobody should question their love of cinema, their love of movies. So that's where you would lose me. They should shut the fuck up. No. You don't get to say that. Those are two of the most important figures in the history of cinema. They can say their piece. You can say they're wrong. You can say Avengers Endgame is as good as The Godfather. You're not going to get any argument. I mean, I don't think it is, but it's okay. I think that everything can coexist. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. Christopher Nolan can make popcorn stuff like The Dark Knight Rises, but he's shown that's not what he's defined by. He's a guy that can do anything. He's the Kubrick of his day. Well, I don't think that Kubrick would have made a comic book movie. But you do what you love. You have a script you want to make, actors you want to work with, unbelievably talented craftspeople. You make a fucking movie. You don't need to apologize for it. And nobody who has made a comic book movie connected to the MCU or DC needs to apologize for it. No, it's okay. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. I thought that the Shazam movies were very entertaining. And Zachary Levi, a lot of people came down on him. You suck. The movie sucked. Hey, I enjoyed him. I thought Captain Marvel was pretty good too. Or Marvel. Sam Jackson was a scream. That's just me. But Blade was first. And it is a true statement to say Wesley Snipes walked so that the MCU could run. And it took enough time, but it all seems as if it was worth it. And Blade's success showed that it could be done. That we could, if we make a good Iron Man movie, if we cast it correctly, people will show up. If you build it, they will come. That's what she said. But it's true. A risk was taken 1,000,000 years ago when the WB and many of the studio executives questioned, are we really going to do a big budget Superman movie? The guy wears his underwear outside of his fucking costume. No one's going to take him seriously. Well, if they had cast Clint Eastwood or Robert Redford or Warren Beatty or James Caan, it would have been difficult to take seriously. But an unknown who looks exactly like the guy in Siegel and Schuster's comics, you got yourself a good bingo. And Wesley Snipes was perfectly cast as Blade. Could not have done any better. And as I said, his performance now seems great. It seems perfect for what they were going for. He couldn't have given a broad movie star performance. He couldn't have shouted, I'll see you and I wouldn't want to be you. No. No. He's focused. He's intense. He's a fucking killer. It is a great movie star performance in still a top tier comic book movie. The first film of what is now the MCU. It's canon. Wesley's Blade is now officially, as if it needed to, but thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine, his iteration of this character is now officially canon. Blade, released on this day, 1998, directed by Stephen Norrington, starring Wesley Snipes, Sanaa Lathan, who plays his mom, Chris Christopherson, Nebusha Wright, Donal Logue, and a very strong Stephen Dorff. This has been episode 281 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I want to thank you all for spending some of your Monday morning with me here in New York. If you catch this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, some motherfuckers always try to ice skate uphill. Peace.